all set.
Okay, we have a nice group of folks today. Glad to see everyone. Let me start by wishing everyone a very happy New Year and wishes for a happy, healthy, better hearing New Year. For those who don't know me, I'm Judy Alden. I'm currently president of the HLAA-DC chapter. Our first program this year promises to be of interest to many of us. I can see by the group we have here, like me, who may be able to hear in noisy places but cannot understand. Big difference. So I'm really looking forward to today's program, and I want to thank Russ very much before I hand it back to him to introduce today's program. I want to thank Russ very much, Russ is past president, for continuing to lead our programs. He continues to provide every month some really outstanding cutting edge topics and speakers. And Russ, we appreciate that. Before proceeding, and Russ mentioned it briefly, let me also review for those of you who may be new to these calls. Some of you folks I recognize, others I don't. Just some quick Zoom how-tos, housekeeping. As Russ said, please mute. On the bottom of your screen, you will see an icon with a microphone. If you put a slash through that, you're muted. That way we're not hearing, you know, today might even be snow we're hearing, but we're not hearing extraneous noises. Video next to the mute button is a video. I would appreciate it very much if we could all turn on our video, which means remove the slash. I think it's a little disconcerting as we try to grow camaraderie and for our presenters to see a blank screen. You know, it's much more engaging if we can see one another. And certainly when you have something to say and you're called on to speak, then definitely you know, unmute so we can hear you. And then for those of us who do lip read, if we can see you on the screen, that further helps us to understand what you're saying. So thank you. Captions, I think that's all been resolved. Everyone have captions? Okay, great. At the bottom of your screen, if you click on that button, I think Russ has walked us through that. Captions will appear, wonderfully provided by Natalie, who's our terrific captionist. And also at the bottom is a chat box. The chat box is a place where you can enter. If you have top of mind questions in a moment, suggest you enter them there, and then our speakers can be sure to address those before we conclude today's program. Screen placement is something you can do with all of those various choices. You can move the chat box, you can move the caption box. Just hold your mouse over that and then drag it to where you want it to be. Very useful, so you're not blocking anything. I think those are the key functions. Before I hand it to Russ, a word about membership in HLAA. HLAA, as you know, is a volunteer organization at the chapter level. But your membership and participation make it possible to have these kinds of programs and do the kinds of education and advocacy work that we actively do in the district on your behalf. If you already joined HLAA, thank you very much. If you haven't, I would refer you to, and I'll put this in the chat box so you have the link. I refer you to hearingloss.org/membership. At that link on National's website, you will find all you need to know about the many benefits of being a member, the advocacy work, the education work, the research updates that are provided. And also with one click, you can join both National and designate the DC chapter as your preferred chapter. I think it's $45 a year for both. So it's something I strongly recommend you check into. New in 2022 this year is an opportunity for our chapter to participate in Amazon Smile. Pardon me. If you're familiar with Amazon Smile, for those of you who shop on Amazon, I certainly do. And again, I'll put this in the chat box. You can go to this link, and its experience is exactly the same as you would have on Amazon. The prices are exactly the same, but by using the designated link for our chapter, And thanks to Lisa Ewan, I think I saw her a moment ago, for exploring this for us. A percentage of your purchases will be designated back to our chapter, which is a great way to generate some revenue and effortless for those of you who do use Amazon. Don't want to forget anything. Look at my notes. Last thing, if you're on our mailing list, you are getting information already about these monthly chapter meetings. If not, please go to our website, HLAA-DC.org, and request to be on the mailing list, and we're happy to do that. Particularly now that we're virtual, we're finding interest from people outside the DC region, and that's great. Any other questions or comments or suggestions about how we the DC chapter board can provide better services and benefit you? Please let us know. We really welcome learning how we can best meet your needs, welcome your participation in the chapter in all kinds of ways. You know, we do a lot of things, and we always welcome people's time and talents. And we'll be in touch to have that conversation. I think that does it for some of the administrative introductory stuff. Russ, back over to you to introduce today's speakers and program. And again, our thanks for continuing to provide these terrific topics.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for the kind words. Just one further announcement. Those of you who are on our mailing list will receive a notification of our next program, which will be February the 6th. It will be on the subject of auditory rehabilitation. That notice should go out probably tomorrow or the day after. If you are not already on our mailing list and want to be, just please send a notification to us, HLAA-DC chapter, HLAA-DC CHAPTER at gmail.com, and tell us you want to be on the list, and we'd be happy to accommodate. Okay, let me introduce today's speakers. First, Ed Auer, who's a PhD. He's an associate professor in the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences at George Washington University. His interests and competence include speech perception, spoken speech recognition, speech reading, also known as lip reading, and phonetics. And Nicole Jordan, who holds a doctorate in audiology from the University of Texas, Dallas, and now serves as clinical coordinator of audiology at George Washington University. Her areas of expertise include pediatric and adult diagnostic hearing evaluations, hearing aids, bone-anchored hearing devices and assistive devices, and central auditory processing disorder. I would add that when we, to the introductions, when we publicize today's program and Ed and Nicole's involvement in it, I received an unsolicited glowing comment from a colleague who advised that she has started the GWU training program, which should be the subject, of today's program, and finds it absolutely, definitely well worth it. One final aside, some years ago, probably 5 or 6, I've lost track, when I first came into contact with the folks at George Washington University, and I remember doing a brief recorded interview at their request, where among other things, I was asked, what are the 3 most important problems I experienced as a person with a major hearing loss? To which I responded, noise, noise, and noise. And I think, therefore, that today's program is certainly one that I'm just absolutely fascinated with. And so without further ado, without further noise from me, In advance, thank you to Ed, Nicole, and also to Lynn Bernstein and Silvio Eberhard at George Washington University. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. So what I'd like to do before I get into the presentation is just briefly allow each of my co-authors to introduce themselves real quick on video. So I'll first start off with Dr. Nicole Jordan. If you could just say hello.
Hello, everyone.
And Dr. Lynn Bernstein.
I am going to be less than brief. I'm going to say thank you for coming to listen to us. And I want to tell you that we've been working for about 30 years on what you're going to hear about today. So please stick with us for the next 40 or so minutes. I think we have some interesting things to say.
And while you have the video up, Dr. Silvio Eberhard.
Hi.
All right, so I will start the presentation here. And one thing that I wanted to mention before we got started, there are some portions of the presentation where there will be lip reading examples, and those parts will not be captioned at the request of the captioner. And we'll also have a chance partway through to pause and answer any questions that might come up. So by all means, keep typing your questions into the chat as you have them. And with that, I will begin sharing my screen. Good afternoon, and thank you to Russ and the DC chapter of HLAA for giving us this opportunity to share our research with you. We are all faculty members at the George Washington University in the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences. Our team has collaborated to research multisensory speech communication for several decades. We conduct basic and applied research and develop custom technology for speech communication. Currently, we are translating what we have learned into tools for public use. We have conducted our research at several institutions, including Gallaudet and the House Ear Institute in California. First, we should tell you the answer to the question in our title: can training improve understanding of noisy speech by listeners with hearing loss? The answer is yes, but maybe in a surprising way. Here is a chart showing training results from 13 adults with hearing loss from a recent study. The pink color shows their word recognition before training, and the blue color shows their word recognition after training. Most of these listeners improved their word recognition after training for about 30 minutes in 8 sessions. They did not train on the words that were tested. The top row shows their gains in recognizing words when the words were in high noise, and they could also see a video of the person who was talking. The second row shows their results for just listening. You can see that not everyone improved, but a few improved a lot. However, you might be surprised to learn that no one received listening training. Everyone who improved on audiovisual and auditory word recognition were trained only on lip reading. The bottom row shows how these adults did in lip reading before and after training, and almost everyone improved. In other words, the improvements in listening and audiovisual speech recognition and noise were the results of training on lip reading. Our results are good news for training and listening and noise. In contrast, recently published studies of auditory speech recognition training have not been so encouraging. But adults with acquired hearing loss are not usually good lip readers. This gives them lots of room for improvement. And the really good news is that improvements in lip reading can lead to improvements in audiovisual speech recognition when you can see and hear someone. Lip reading a person better can also lead to understanding them better when they cannot be seen. We're now going to tell you some more about lip reading and audiovisual speech recognition, but we thought we should first answer the question in the title of this talk. In today's presentation, we're going to tell you some things about lip reading that you may not have heard before. I will begin by defining what we mean by lip reading. Next, I will discuss how watching the talker can help you hear better in noisy situations. Then, I will present some important features of lip reading training, along with why we think it's important to train on lip reading. I will then let you know how you can help us out by participating in our online research studies. Our participants are thanked with a gift card at the end of the study. We will conclude by showing some demonstrations of different training approaches. We will take some breaks along the way for questions. Lip reading is the ability to understand speech by watching a person when they are talking. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you some examples of speech information available on the talker's face. I feel this is important because some people believe that not much is available from the talker's face. When talking about lip reading, we often focus on the shape of the lips. And clearly, the shape of the lips is important for identification of consonants and vowels. In this slide, we show still frames that capture the talker's face at informative points when speaking 4 different English consonant sounds: b, f, s, and th. When speaking, we know that the lips press together to make the B consonant gesture. In contrast, the talker touches the lower lip to the bottom of the upper teeth in order to produce the consonant F. However, when we look at these different consonants, we see that the term lip reading is really a misnomer. It is not just the lip shapes that are important. Skilled lip readers glimpse into the talker's mouth to see their tongue movements along with watching the rest of the talker's face, including their cheeks and their jaw. For example, as you can see at the image on the far right, the talker places the tip of his tongue through his teeth to produce the TH sound, as in thin. In this slide, we see the difference between the vowels as in hut and a as in hay. Both vowels have similar lip shapes, as you can see, but the tongue is in a different position, which can be seen by looking into the mouth. They also differ in the puffiness in the cheeks, which can be seen by looking at the regions around the mouth. You can feel the difference in your own mouth by alternating between and a repeatedly. Those differences that you can feel are also visible and used by the skilled lip reader. In addition to what can be seen in still frames, skilled lip readers use lip, jaw, cheek, and tongue movements to understand speech. Here, I'd like you to focus on lip, jaw, and cheek movement when watching a talker say the syllable da repeatedly. On one side is the full video, and on the other side, we just see the dots that were on the face while he was talking. If we take away the talker's face and just watch the dots move, we can see that he is talking, and we can see that the lips, jaw, and cheeks are moving. For some, this motion can even provide an indication of what he was saying. As you're beginning to see, the talker's face can convey a wealth of speech information. But this raises the question of just how accurately can individuals lip read, and how much do they vary in that ability? We've done some research to investigate that. We have tested the lip reading ability of several hundreds of both deaf and hearing adults. These tests are in the form of watching silent videos of a talker saying a sentence, and then a participant typing in what they thought the talker said. The sentences are common English sentences and are presented without any context. Here we see the results of one such study. The figure displays what is referred to as a box plot, and we use this type of plot because it shows the whole distribution of results in one figure. One feature of both the hearing and deaf participants' performance is just how much variation there is in the lip reading ability. The deaf range between 0 and about 82% words correct. The hearing range from 0 to roughly 65% words correct. Another interesting feature of this figure is that deaf participants tend to be better lip readers than the hearing participants. A main take-home from this graph, in relation to what I've just been saying about lip reading, is that the high levels achieved by the best deaf participants demonstrate just how informative the talking face can be. Furthermore, the relatively low performance of the hearing individuals suggests that for many, there is a lot of room for improvement given appropriate training is given. We now turn our attention to the question of how does lip reading help when listening in noise? We know that for many people it is rare to rely solely on lip reading to understand the talker. Frequently, individuals will be able to see and hear the talker. Importantly, when you watch and listen to a talker, the combination can make for highly intelligible speech. Put simply, the combined information is far greater than the sum of its parts. In considering the benefits of lip reading, we are thinking about how a hearing aid or cochlear implant can work with lip reading to improve communication. Here, I'm using a visual example to explain how listening and looking work together. This first square, filled with colorful noise, represents listening in an extremely noisy environment without a hearing aid or implant. If you look closely, you can make out that there is the word speech in the middle of the box. However, it is quite challenging and you might not even be able to see it. The second square represents listening with the benefit of a hearing aid or implant in that same noisy situation. In the best circumstances, the increase in audibility from the hearing aid and any benefits from directional microphones make it easier to understand speech. However, there is a lot of room to increase the intelligibility and the ease of recognition of speech. The third square represents listening to speech with a hearing aid combined with lip reading. Speech is far easier to understand and it separates from the surrounding noise. You might ask, if you have a really good hearing aid or implant, why is lip reading important? And I'll have the audiologist on our team address these limitations of hearing aids and implants.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nicole Jordan. I'm the clinical coordinator of audiology at the GW Speech and Hearing Center. Let's talk about why speech reading and lip reading is important for those that have hearing aids. Hearing aids have distinct limitations. First off, they're aids. They're designed to aid and help you hear, but a hearing aid is not going to be able to help you hear what a normal hearing individual hears. It does not equate to normal hearing. So hearing aids absolutely have limitations. When audiologists fit your hearing loss prescription, what's unique to you and your ears and your hearing, many times they fit the hearing aids to optimize audibility while still optimizing comfort. In doing so, many times treble tones, high pitches and high frequency sounds are decreased in order to optimize comfort and naturalizations of sounds. In doing this, while they make the hearing aids a lot more comfortable to you, they might decrease clarity to some of the softer, higher pitch sounds like S, TH, SH, P, and F. In terms of the individual, the more hearing loss an individual has, the more difficult it is for an audiologist to be able to maximize that audibility, comfort, and sound naturalization. The softest sounds that you're able to hear are now louder than what they usually are with normal hearing. So in cases of moderately severe, severe, or profound hearing loss, there is a higher risk of not hearing certain speech sounds, or sometimes those speech sounds sounding more distorted than they would if someone were to have natural hearing. Finally, with hearing aids, although technology has come such a long way, the microphone adjustments that are made automatically within the hearing aid and the noise reduction in the hearing aid, the actual processing chip itself, can only do so much. So a lot more needs to be done by the listener in terms of attention, focus, filling in gaps, or in the case of many individuals, filling in those gaps with lip reading and being able to see the speech to better hear the speech. While cochlear implants are amazing technology and help adults with severe to profound hearing loss, and in many cases now have been brought in to help those that have high frequency hearing loss or even single-sided deafness, they also have limitations. While many individuals with cochlear implants have thresholds or they're able to hear soft sounds consistent with normal hearing, having a CI or cochlear implant does not equate to having normal hearing either. A cochlear implant provides that audibility, but so much more has to be done in terms of brain hearing, listening, and communicating. While individuals that have cochlear implants have more access to those speech sounds than they did when they used a hearing aid, the improvement in terms of noise filters and also directionality with microphones may also not be enough for successful communication when there's lots of background noise present. In situations like that, being able to see the speech really helps an individual in those listening situations. If you have a cochlear implant only in one ear, you're still going to be missing important timing cues and loudness cues that are important for successful hearing and background noise. We are designed to hear with 2 ears and a brain. So if those ears aren't working the way they should be working and even on both sides, sometimes it's going to be really difficult to hear in noisy situations. In these cases, being able to see the speech rather than just hear it makes a big difference. So if you're a hearing aid user or you're a cochlear implant user, how much of a benefit can you get from lip reading? The noise suppression of hearing aids and cochlear implants, again, has come such a long way, but is still less effective than what your eyes can provide you in terms of being able to see the speech. In this first option, you can see that the speech is still fairly faded. You can see the word speech, but it's not clear. This is a great visual of how those noise suppressions and hearing devices can help you hear a little bit better in background noise, but aren't perfect. The big clarity comes from being able to see that speech while using your hearing devices at the same time. You can see in the second option, you're getting much more clear speech reading. In terms of the difference, digital noise reduction is able to increase your ability to hear by 3 to 5 decibels, whereas when you add the lip reading in, it increases it significantly more, up to 12 to 20 decibels. How might this help you improve speech understanding and background noise? I love this graph here. This is what we call the speech banana. What it is a superimposed picture of where speech sounds lie over an audiogram. So we've got low pitches here all the way up to high pitches. And the further down the graph you can get, the more hearing loss exists. Some of the softer, higher pitch sounds or treble sounds are going to be here with the F, TH, S. Some softer sounds like P and K are also going to be difficult to hear for those that might have high frequency hearing loss. When you add background noise, that background noise tends to be so much more powerful than the soft, high-pitched speech sounds. In audiology, we often say that low pitches, which equates to background noise, provides the power in speech, whereas some of the high-pitched sounds or treble sounds add more clarity. So if you've got a lot of power and background noise that is making it difficult to hear the clarity, you're really not going to understand the message very well at all. So again, in most situations, even with normal hearing individuals, when background noise is present, those higher pitch sounds like F, TH, and S may be hard to distinguish by ear.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. So as we saw earlier, by examining the tongue, teeth, and lips in these still images, it's easy to see the difference between fa, fa, and sa. So even though these differences are hard to hear, they're actually pretty easy to see. This distinctiveness is even easier to see when we watch the video of the talker saying fa, fa, and sa. We start with a full face, full speed video and then focus in on the mouth region, slowed to half speed for demonstration purposes. Our brains are designed to combine listening and lip reading to make speech more understandable in noise. To give you a feel for how much you might already benefit from viewing the talker, we will do a little demonstration. We will play a single sentence spoken by a female talker, but to make it more challenging, the sentence will be mixed together with some background babble. I will play the example twice to give you a chance to listen to it and try and understand what she is saying. Although the talker's face is shown on the screen, it will not move. Is everybody ready to listen and try to understand the sentence? Here we go.
You have changed for a $5 bill.
And one more time.
You have changed for a $5 bill.
Okay, that was pretty challenging. So let's go on and we'll try to see what we can do when we can see the talker's face moving. Now I will play the exact same audio clip, except this time you'll also see the talker's face move as she speaks the sentence. Is everybody ready to listen and watch? Here we go.
You have changed for a $5 bill.
Okay, I'll play it one more time.
You have changed for a $5 bill.
The talker said, "Do you have change for a $5 bill?" Hopefully this demonstration gives you a feel for how much easier it is to understand speech when you can also see the talker. But if watching didn't help, it may be that you need to improve your lip reading, because better lip readers can do this task better than poor lip readers. Okay, I just wanted to cut in for a second here and just make sure that there weren't any questions that people had that they wanted to ask. You can unmute yourself and ask if you'd like. Okay, I will continue.
Oh, I think that there was a chat, but you might have addressed this. It was do you use terms lip reading and speech reading interchangeably?
Correct. Yeah. So we are using the terms lip reading and speech reading interchangeably. We're referring to lip reading primarily here in the first part of the talk, and then speech reading where you can make use of more of the information in the second part. So, but typically I will interchange those quite frequently. So I will move on and start the video playing again. Another way to look at the benefit of lip reading and listening in noise is to look at some results taken from our ongoing studies. We start with the data from an 80-year-old hearing aid user. We are showing the results for word recognition in sentences. In this activity, sentences are presented one at a time, and the participant types in what they thought was said. All of the audio is presented in combination with noise that is similar to white noise or loud rushing air. Looking at the pink bar, we see this participant is really struggling when listening in noise. He can only hear about 5% of the words correctly. Looking at the blue bar, he's also not a very good lip reader. He is more like the typical hearing participants we showed in the box plot earlier. He can lip read about 13% of the words correctly. However, when he was able to see and hear the talker saying these sentences, his accuracy was greatly improved, going up to 41% words correct. This is a good example of the benefit of being able to see and hear the talker. As you can see, the performance in the listening and lip reading condition is substantially higher than would be expected by adding the listening alone and the lip reading alone performance together. In this figure, we show the performance on the same task for a participant who listens through a cochlear implant. Looking at the pink bar, this individual was doing much better when listening in noise. They were able to recognize 41% of the words correctly. They were also somewhat better at lip reading, but still only recognized 22% of the words correctly when lip reading. Importantly, we see that this participant was much better at understanding speech when they could see and hear the talker. They recognized 65% of the words in sentences correctly when they could both see and hear the talker. Finally, we show here a similar pattern of results holds for a participant with normal hearing. The pink bar shows that they were able to recognize 28% of the words correctly when listening alone. Listening in noise is clearly a challenging task, even for individuals with normal hearing. The blue bar indicates that they were typical hearing lip readers, getting about 19% of the words correct. Looking at the green bar, this participant really benefited from seeing and hearing the talker. They were able to recognize 68% of the words correctly. This level of performance is particularly impressive given that they were not very accurate when they could only look or listen. It's important to note that we purposely make the conditions difficult in our testing. We would expect that if the noise levels were not as challenging, then these participants would have easily reached close to or equal to 100% words correct when able to see and hear the talker. To sum up so far, we have seen that lip reading contributes to distinguishing the consonants and vowels, and that this helps us to recognize spoken words. Lip reading can improve our ability to understand speech beyond using a hearing aid and/or cochlear implant. Lip reading can greatly improve understanding speech when hearing speech is difficult in noisy social settings. As we turn to the discussion of training to improve your lip reading ability, an important question to ask is, what is it that makes a good lip reader? The answer to this question is a key message that you should take away from today's presentation. The answer that we've arrived at after years of research studying expert lip readers is that they have the ability to recognize a large number of words without knowing the context. So the key is good lip-read word recognition. We know that this is not an easy task to achieve, and getting better will take some time and effort on your part. We also are not discounting the importance of context. Of course, context is important, but to get really good at lip reading, you have to have fast and accurate word recognition skill based on watching the talker. Think about recognizing words when you're listening in a good setting. You're not thinking about the consonants and vowels and how they match the sounds that you're hearing. You're just hearing the words. Skilled lip readers aren't thinking about the mouth shapes and tongue positions. They're just seeing the words. We don't expect you to become an expert lip reader with this training. However, we know that the better you are at lip reading, the larger the benefit you get when watching and listening. The research shows that poor lip readers get less benefit than better lip readers when speech is noisy. Even small improvements in lip reading will result in a benefit to you. So how do we get there? Even though most adults who grew up with normal hearing are not particularly good at lip reading, our evidence suggests that most adults do have some ability to lip read. In examining our participants' responses, we frequently encounter evidence that even our less skilled participants are perceiving the information on the talker's face, but they're struggling to recognize words using that information. Oftentimes, this comes in the form of humorous responses. In this example, the talker said, "Proofread your final results." Our participant responded with, "Blue fish are funny." While this may seem nonsensical and unrelated at first, on closer examination, this response is quite reasonable. The visible production of proof is well matched with the response of blue fish. The production of final is well matched with the response of funny. So this type of response provides evidence that the participant was responding to what they saw the talker produce, even though they actually responded with no correct words. This suggests that what they need is feedback on their errors. Before we describe what successful training should look like, we begin by discussing what it shouldn't look like. What does unsuccessful training do? It makes you good at naming consonants and vowels in isolation, but no better at comprehending words alone or in sentences. Learning to lip read is not about learning to explicitly match the talker's gestures to the names of the consonants and vowels. This is not what skilled lip readers do, and furthermore, it's not what we do when we are listening to speech. Unsuccessful training also will improve your lip reading of only the materials that you train with. This type of training at best is tuning you to the materials you train on and does not extend beyond those materials. This does not lead to real-world benefits. Unsuccessful training overemphasizes guessing. While guessing can have a role to play, the primary emphasis should be to decode what the talker is saying in the context of word recognition. Unsuccessful training also overemphasizes the reliance on using context. While context is important, what the talker is saying is where the information is. Understanding some of their words can greatly increase the context that you have. So what characteristics does useful training have? It improves lip reading words and talkers that are different from the training materials, so it generalizes. It corrects vowel and consonant errors. So training should provide feedback for more than what you correctly recognize. The brain makes use of the feedback on errors to correct performance. If the feedback is only for what you correctly perceive, the brain does not have what it needs to improve and learn. Think about learning any difficult skill. It's nice to know when you get things right, but where you really need the feedback is where you're having a hard time and you're struggling the most. Finally, it improves audio-visual speech recognition and noise, so it makes it easier when you're listening and looking at the same time. We have developed a variety of training protocols based on our laboratory research and the research of others. We have observed 10 to 20 percentage point increases in word recognition with roughly 5 to 6 hours of training spread over roughly 10 sessions. In part, thanks to COVID, we are now testing these training protocols to measure their strengths and weaknesses when delivered via the web. Our system uses sophisticated software to analyze the errors that are made during lip reading and to provide useful feedback to practice and improve word recognition skills. In a moment, we will be demonstrating 3 of our training protocols that we are testing. Each of those demo videos lasts about 2 minutes, and afterwards we'll open it up for questions that you might have. Before we do that, we could really use your help by participating in our research studies. These studies are completely remote, and there is no need to come into the lab. We are currently seeking individuals between 18 and 85 with and without hearing loss. You must have primarily heard spoken English during the first 10 years of your life, have not had major concussions or other brain injuries, have normal or corrected to normal vision. If you're interested in participating, or you know somebody who might be, please have them contact us by going to seehere.us, which is our research portal. You can also email me at ehour@gwu.edu. Now we turn on to the demos. This first video shows a training approach that focuses on word recognition in isolation. This is a how-to video for lip reading training. It shows all of the activities you will do with every training word. You will be training with 60 real words in each session, and the words will vary in difficulty. Each word will be introduced by a target consonant or consonants, and to begin the training, you will click on that consonant. You will then see 2 words spoken, and you must pick the word containing the target consonant. Select 1 for the first word, or 2 for the second word. If you're correct, you will then lip read the word and type in what you think it is. Let's try an example. The target consonant is K. I'll click on the K and then watch the videos. I think the target consonant's in the second word, so I press the second button, and I'm right. Now I watch the word again to identify it. I think it's lake. So I type in lake, and I'm right. Okay, let's try another one. Now the target's G. I think it's G. So I type in G, and I'm right. Okay, let's try another one. Now the target's L. I think it's L. So I type in L, and I'm right. Okay, let's try another one. Now the target's G. I think it's G. So I type in G, and I'm right. Okay, let's try another one. Now the target's G. I think it's in the second word, and I'm wrong. So let's try it again with G. I'll try the second word again, and I'm right. Now to identify it. I think it's wagging. I was close, but not quite correct, so I get to see the consonants and try again. This time I type in wagon, and it looks like I'm right, so now I can go on. You'll do this activity for 60 words in each session. The second video shows a training approach that focuses on word recognition in sentences. This is a how-to video for lip reading training. It demonstrates the sentence training activity. In this activity, a talker will speak unrelated standard English sentences, and you will try to lip read those sentences. For each video, you will watch the sentence and then type in what you thought was said. The software will score your response and then display the words that you lip read correctly. It will also display the consonants in words that were close. Correct words are printed on green, and correct consonants that were in close words are printed on amber. You will then have a second chance to lip read the sentence and type in your response. The software will again score your response and display how you did. The software will also print the correct answer and show you the video one more time. During this activity, please focus on the lower part of the talker's face. Also, please type words or parts of words that you think may be correct. The software needs your response to provide you with feedback. Let's try an example by pressing the button. I thought he said that was cool last night, so that's what I'll type in. That and last were close, so I only get to see the consonants. Cool and night were correct, so they're in green. With that feedback in mind, let's watch again and see if we can do a little bit better. It gets cool at night. And that's correct. Now we get to see the sentence typed out and watch the video one more time. This is how the activity will go for the rest of the sentences in today's session. The third video also shows a training approach that focuses on word recognition, but now we're using nonsense words like yachted, and we're emphasizing visual memory. This is a how-to video for lip reading training. It shows all of the activities you will do with every training word. Look at the printed letters. Every word has 2 D's and 1 other consonant. The vowels are always ah and I, and they are never printed. Here's an example. Look at the printed letters and say the word yachted to yourself. Remember yachted while we work through this example. I will click on yachted to start the activities. My goal is always to match the first video word to either the second or third video. Now, I have to decide whether the second or third word matches the first word yachted. I chose word 2. I was wrong. So I get to try one more time. I have to pay attention because the correct word may be word 2 or word 3 on this second try. Look at the printed letters and say yachted to yourself. Remember yachted. I think the matching word is word 2. Now I'm correct. Lastly, a different talker will say a word, and I will have to decide if she said yachted. I think it was the same, so I will click on same. Looks like I was correct. Let's go through one more example. This time the word is dashed. I thought it was 2, and I was correct. I thought it was the same, and I was correct. You will do this activity with 80 different nonsense words in each training session. To recap, lip reading is important because it compensates for hearing difficulties in noise and in quiet. The better a lip reader you are, the more lip reading can benefit you, whether speech is in quiet or in noise. Training can improve lip reading, but not all methods work. The training needs to give you feedback to help you improve your perception of consonants and vowels in the process of spoken word recognition. Before I open it up for questions, I'd just like to acknowledge the National Institutes of Health for supporting our research. Thank you for your attention. Okay, thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and now I'll open it up for questions. One question that did come in, well, there were a couple questions that came in the chat. One was asking about reading with masks, and clear visible masks are useful for allowing you to see the talker's face while they're talking, but certainly COVID has been a problem for us with people having masks covering their mouths. That makes lip reading next to impossible. The other question was about the speed of the instructions. Those instructional videos are part of the reminders that are given at the beginning of each session, and there's also a written set of instructions that are given. But before you get involved in any of the training, I verbally explain what it is that you have to do, and then give you an opportunity to try it out while I'm still on a Zoom session. And at that point, you're able to ask questions and try things out and really understand what it is that you're supposed to be doing.
I'll also chime in about the mask topic. What I've recommended to many patients is you can go online, you can just look up Clear Mask or go on Amazon. There's actually Clear Mask. It's a trademark company that makes Clear Mask. And what I recommend to my patients is buy some, carry them on you. And if you have someone that you see quite frequently, they'll likely have no problem wearing one for you. So let's say you go to the hairdressers and you're getting your hair cut and you go to the same individual, every 6 or 7 weeks. You provide them with a clear mask and ask them to wear it. They definitely absolutely will. It's a little bit more difficult in situations where, you're going to pick up something from the grocery store and the individual you have checking out your groceries is different every time. In those instances where they're wearing their provided mask, I really encourage people to look at some of the cheek and nose movements. You get a little bit more information from that, but it's still very difficult. For those that you do frequent, start handing them clear masks. They'll start to get the point and they'll start buying their own. I mean, I've had tons of patients do that and right away people switch. Are any clear masks N95 or KN95? They are not 95s, but the trademark clear mask ones are medically approved. So those are used in hospitals and clinic settings. And those are the ones that I use in my clinic.
And Nikki, if you read a little bit in the chat, there's a question about conversational skills to help people understand that you're lip reading. I'm not sure if you want to address that.
Sorry, Ed, I'm scrolling through. Can you read out the question for me?
Sure. In actual conversations, have you found any best practice to explain to listening partners that you're lip reading?
Oh, that's a great question. So you can play around with phrasing. I usually encourage my patients to say something like, if someone's covering their mouths, oh, can you remove your hand, or can you, not talk with your mouth full, or things like that. It's something like, being able to see your facial expressions really helps me here, or being able to visibly see you really helps in these situations. And that way you're not using a term like lip reading or speech reading, which some people don't know about, but just saying, hey, that visual access to your facial features really does help. And in instances where you're communicating with someone who has the habit of walking away from you or turning away from you when they're talking, their voice is now going in the opposite direction of you. So something like, when you're facing away and your voice is going in that direction, I'm struggling to hear you. And I am guilty of it. My husband calls me out on it all the time. I'll talk to him from across the house, and it's so awful. And I'm an audiologist and I know not to do it, but he is very good at telling me. He's got auditory processing disorder. I'm very aware of it. And he'll say, Nikki, you know better than this. I can't hear anything you're saying.
So another question that came in was, will lip reading training also help understand dialogue on TV programs or films? It's certainly a huge problem in the entertainment industry right now. The sound quality on a lot of films is getting worse. I just recently read an article about this, and it's almost by design, unfortunately. So it will help you understand the talkers if you're able to see their face, obviously. But it's becoming challenging for people who have good hearing to understand the dialogue at times. And I think, any benefit that you can get from lip reading and being to lip read better is going to improve your ability to pull that information off the talker's face in any sort of difficult listening condition.
I will also say this, that in anything you're watching at home, add closed captioning. I recommend that to every single person, regardless of hearing status. It's really healthy for your brain to be able to get auditory, visual information at the same time. I mean, that sort of ties into everything we've been saying with visual information and hearing, but adding that extra closed captioning is really important. I'll also mention, as many of you are in the DC area, I'm sure some of you frequent like the Kennedy Center. I tell everyone that if you know a musical that you're going to see, or a live symphony performance that you're going to see, to familiarize yourself with the dialogue and the music beforehand. You can get certain apps on your phone, or go online, or even just buy the album of whatever you're listening to. And if you can listen to it at home and kind of train your ears for what you're listening to, when you go to the live performance, it'll make it that much better. Many of my patients went to go see Hamilton, and Hamilton is wonderful, but they sing so fast. And it's very difficult for individuals with hearing loss. So I recommend, in cases like that, listen to the songs beforehand, even have printed out lyrics, take yourself through it. And then when you go to live performances, keep in mind that theaters like the Kennedy Center likely have assistive devices that can help. So knowing what your device can help with. And many theaters actually have disability seating. So if you call ahead and you talk to someone, likely you can get seats that are going to be visually a little bit better for you, or a lot better for you. And you can have some of that sort of visual sort of aid to help with seeing, equating to hearing better.
So there was a question about when the studies start or when the training starts. These studies are ongoing. They'll be running for the next probably year. And so reach out via email and let me know, and I can give you more information about participating. I will put our web address in chat, and my email address so you can easily copy it out. We also have one of our participants who wanted to discuss how things were going in the training.
Hey, Ed. Good to see
Howdy.
you. I've been involved in the study for a short time. And hang on one second. I'm coming in two different ways. Okay, that's better. It's pretty easy to do. And I have really not noticed a great deal of improvement, I'm sorry to say, because I'm not very good at it. But I have gotten slightly better. It did seem fast to me at the beginning, but I'm getting used to it now. And I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. And I highly recommend that everybody do it.
Thank you. To the point of it being fast, yes, that's something that you're going to notice in terms of lip reading. It's going to seem very fast initially, but as you gain skill at it, it will definitely seem as though it's becoming slower, even though the stimuli or the speech is happening at the same pace.
Am I correct? Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
Am I correct in assuming with respect to the speed that's because that's based on the normal speech patterns? And
Yes.
okay. And the second thing is, do you have any estimates of how long it takes a person to go through these exercises?
Yeah, so the whole experiment typically takes 3 to 4 weeks. Part of that is there are 2 sessions beforehand where we're doing preliminary testing, and we send out a sound level meter to individuals to calibrate their audio. And then there are either 8 or 10 sessions of training, and that will take anywhere from 8 to 10 days or a couple of weeks to complete it. And then we have a follow-up session. So it spreads itself out over typically about 3 weeks, but it really doesn't take a whole lot of time. Training itself should last, each session should be about 30 minutes to an hour at the most, typically in the 30 to 45 minute range. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, is it important that they be consecutive, that it?
No, they don't have to be on consecutive days. You can take breaks in between. We like to get everybody through the 8 or 10 sessions within a couple of weeks typically. So you can skip days, but it doesn't have to be on consecutive days. The only limitation that we do put on it is that you can't do more than 1 session in a day.
Okay. And would the logic there be that helps with learning?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So sleeping and consolidation can happen while you rest. So absolutely, that's built into it, that we want you to do some of the work, and it is can be very tiring to go through. And we keep it relatively short and then give you a break, and we expect, come back to it after you've rested.
And a lot of this has to tie into things like attention and memory and fatigue. So shorter sessions that are sort of spaced out a little bit more tend to be more helpful. And in larger training programs, for this portion, it's sort of a shorter study. But for larger long-term training programs, it really depends on the individual and how long it takes them to build the skills that they need. And it might be an ongoing thing. So for instance, for myself, I have ADHD. And so things that I have trained on and learned, I oftentimes have to go back and continuously keep sort of learning them, because if my attention changes or if I don't utilize those skills as often as I should be, I lose them. And so it's that, you know, if you don't really use it, you'll lose it. So coming back to things that are relearning the basics, I oftentimes have to do. And same with any sort of oral rehabilitation, in this case, lip reading. If you find that you've made vast improvements on the training, but then, you know, you're, especially in this time when you're not socializing as much, you're not utilizing these skills, well, you might have to go back and kind of keep up with training and things like that.
So this is more of a technical detail. The account creation on our website is a secure account creation, and it sometimes gets tripped up by email systems that will filter out the correct web address to respond and activate your account. And so we've had that happen with maybe 2 or 3 individuals so far, and hundreds have made accounts. But I have seen that before. If you have any issues with creating an account and you're interested in participating, just send me an email and I'll make sure that the account gets created and you get activated on the system. So I see the question was actually about the enrollment code. So we create accounts for logins on our research portal, and then we, during the initial Zoom meeting, we give you an enrollment code. And we do that so that we can make sure that people who are enrolling in the studies actually have gone through an appropriate consent process, understand, you know, the research process, and we like to do that live. And let me just type in the URL into chat again. There you go. So you don't get the enrollment code until you actually make contact with me and we set up a Zoom meeting. For those people that don't qualify, we are setting up the option to have you run through the training, try it out. And so reach out to me and we'll handle that offline. Are there any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I understand correctly that this is all handled on Zoom, or do we have to come down to GWU?
You do not have to come into GW at all. This is all virtual. So I'm running people who are located in California. It's everywhere. So we handle the first 2 sessions via Zoom. Then the training itself is all through the website. And then we have a final follow-up session where we do some post-testing. And that's handled via Zoom as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me point out that the training sessions are on your own. It's not Zoom. So there are really only 3, and in some cases overflow 4 sessions on Zoom. Everything else, all the training is at home without a Zoom session.
But aren't there requirements? I've completed the training, you know, over a month ago, and I recall you need a good computer connection. You know, it's not something you do on your phone. It's not something you do on an iPad. So there are certain requirements by
Correct.
technology. And I was probably one of the earlier participants, and, you know, Ed and I worked out issues with the access. You know, I did not want to load another, I didn't want to put Google on my Apple. You know, I use Safari and Firefox, so we tinkered with those. So it might be useful, Ed, if you mentioned some of those preliminary, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So we prefer that run our experiments in Chrome. That's the best browser for what are running. We also expect that you're running it on a laptop. This will not run on an iPad. Unfortunately, Apple has limited some of the things that can happen in their browsers, and that creates a problem for our software, particularly for our testing software, not for our training software. So we would want you to have a home computer of some sort, a relatively decent internet connection, and then you should be able to work on just about any browser at this point. As Lisa was mentioning, we worked through some of the issues that came up when we went to a different browser on a Mac, and we got those corrected, and they ran fine. So yes, there are definitely restrictions. Take a look at our website. There are options on the website to test out your system to make sure it works, that it will play back the audio, that it will play the video. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'm happy to work with you to get the system running on whatever configuration that you have.
With this being so remote, I just want to let everyone know that Ed is really, really good at taking people through troubleshooting. We've had individuals with varying degrees of technology access, like he mentioned, all over the country. So he's fantastic at that. With this being so easy to do from home, we really just want to open this up for really just access to anyone. So you'll have the flyer already or after this presentation. If you even have friends, family, different parts of the country that want to participate that you think would be interested in this, send it along, please. We want this to go to as many people, to help them as much as possible. We have individuals who have normal hearing who are participating because they struggle to hear in noise. This is really for lots of different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Other questions?
Ed, I have one. If someone has completed the training study, but wants to have access to continuing training, what are your recommendations for that?
So at least within our system, we're setting up so that there are enrollment codes that allow access for types of training. So we showed you 3 different types of training. When you're in the study, you only get one of those types of training for the full 8 or 10 sessions. And once you have completed the study, if it's not possible to participate in a different study, because there are a couple of different studies that are going on, then we're happy to make it available to you so that you can try out the other types of training and see what works best for you. The things that would make somebody ineligible for our study, there are a lot of different possible reasons that are handled on a case-by-case basis, but we have a set of requirements that are up on the website that lay out the details of what we are looking for in a participant. It could be for one study, you might have too much of a hearing loss. A severe or profound loss would disqualify you from one of the studies, but we would be able to run you in the other study. So, it really depends. Another thing that would potentially disqualify you is if English wasn't your first language. So there are a lot of different things, or if you have had a series of head injuries or something like that. We're expecting that the participants and all of you have come to this meeting. I would expect that many of you qualified for one of the studies.
I'll also mention that just because you don't qualify for the research study doesn't mean that the lip reading training won't help you. It just means that for research, we need to check specific boxes. So.
Correct. So we are funded by NIH, and we've specified to them the people that we are going to be able to run, and they've agreed to that. So that places certain limits on who we can and can't run. We're also covered by an institutional review board that reviews all human participants, or all studies that use human participants. And so they also have an agreement with us about who we can and can't run. So, as far as the formal study, there are some details that we need to handle and abide by. But for actually doing the training, that's a different story. So if you're interested and you don't think you qualify, by all means, and I'll get back to you about whether you qualify and whether we can do something. Other questions? Okay, well, I can hand it back to Russ at this point. And thank you all for your attention, and we really appreciate all the interest.
Certainly, to both of you, to Ed and Nicole, thank you very much. And much appreciated. I think I'm probably a candidate. I consider myself a pretty poor lip reader. I do obviously take advantage. I'm better obviously at understanding if I can see faces, largely because it conveys information about mood, intent. Is the speaker serious, or is he joking, he or she? And information of that sort, but in terms of reproducing what the speaker's intent, particularly in noise. As I indicated, I think earlier introducing you, the three problems that I found particularly challenging for a person with hearing loss are noise, and noise, and whatever in whatever order you want to rank them. And that continues to be the case. But thank you very, very much. I much appreciate it. Judy, do you have anything to add?
Let me unmute. Just thank you very much. I professionally was trained in what's called neurolinguistic programming, where you read body language and mirror it. And so I guess instinctively, as I've lost my hearing, I looked at facial. I tried to use facial and lip reading to help my hearing. What I found interesting is, in that context, when I really looked at someone intently, they knew I was interested. That's a very positive thing, to ask someone, I think, as was mentioned, may I please face me so I can understand you better. I did find people respected that because they knew I really wanted to know what they were saying. Having said that, these days with all the facial hair, and I must say, Ed, you and Russ are prototypical. It doesn't make it easier. But I do.
Yes, that's true.
But I do. Russ, back to you. I have nothing further to add except thank you very much. I learned a lot, And I think your study is wonderful, and the training certainly will benefit many of us, even people like me, who really need to better understand what I'm trying to do as I lip read. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And just one last call for any questions any other comments that people want to raise. And not hearing any. Let me bring this session to a conclusion. I found it most interesting and hope you did as well. Wait a minute, okay, but wait a minute, before we close.
Yeah, I wanted to add something about things people said. I don't know if everyone knows, but at the Kennedy Center, there are captioned performances, and the entire left side of the orchestra is reserved on those performances. And the price of the ticket is the same as I think the second balcony, because it's ADA, accessible. And I saw Hamilton and a few other shows that way, and it's really spectacular. The other thing is that the district and Northern Virginia and some theaters in Maryland, in Montgomery County, have open captioned movie times. And I've been trying to find the guy who circulates the email every week, but I'm sure your chapter can find it. And he sends a whole list of the movie theaters that now have open caption screenings. And I've heard that the AMC theaters are going to, all over the country, be doing that. So for those of us in Montgomery County, if the AMC comes into Montgomery Mall, hopefully, that will be available. So those were two things mentioned in the chat and people talked about.
Thank you.
I'll add to that too, really quickly. If you look on the website of whatever movie theater is near you, there should be, you can search in the search something like disabilities or assistive devices or something, and it should come up, but you can also call your theater as well, because even just simple phone calls to ask to talk to some managerial staff, letting them know that you would like the access of closed captioning and things like that really goes a long way.
Thank you, Lisa. If you will send me an email afterwards, I can put you in contact. The person that you're trying to reach, I'm pretty sure I know, and can tell, put you in touch with him.
I think Lisa put it in the chat. Lisa Ewan put it in the chat.
Yeah, I just put an email address in the chat. That should, I think you can email that address and they will add you to the list.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Good. Okay. Thank you all for coming. I hope you found it as interesting as I do and useful as I do. And I will, I'm going to make some time to go through this. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Russ.
Much appreciated. And for the rest of you, stay safe, stay warm, stay home until the snow ends. Right? Okay, thank you all.